parents and students, I want to take a minute to introduce you to one of my favorite math games, and that's Math War. For this game, you'll need 2 people and a deck of cards. As you can see, I already went ahead and split my deck into 2 piles, one for me and one for my partner, and I took the jokers out because I wanted to make this game a little bit easier when we first started off, and later on when I talk about some variations of how I play this game, I'll tell you how you can incorporate those jokers back in. So to start with, I have my 2 piles, and I'm going to flip over my top card, and my partner's going to flip over their top card, and we're going to compare them. And so 4 is bigger than 3, so the person with the bigger card gets to take the other person's card prisoner. And as you can see, my partner is already well on their way to winning more. And we continue this game by flipping over the top card and comparing. Now here we have an ace. We always consider aces to be 1s. So I would get to take my partner's card prisoner because my 5 is bigger than the ace, that's a 1. And we continue going on. Any face cards, that's jack, king, or queen, we consider to be a 10. So this 10 would be bigger than the 8, and I would get to take my partner's card prisoner. In order to win the game, we have to get through all of the cards that are in my original deck, and then we count up to see how many I've taken prisoner, and the partner that has the most prisoners is the winner. Pretty simple in theory, but it's really fun. One way that we've been playing this game in class is to do it by addition. So instead of flipping over just 1 card, we flip over 2 cards. So I have my king, which is a 10, and a 4, so I have 14. And my partner then flips over their 2 cards, and they have a 7 and a 4, so they have 11. So my 14 would beat the 11, and I would get to take their 2 cards prisoner. And we continue playing just like we would for regular war, all the way through our pile, and then we count up our prisoners to see who wins. If you wanted to make this game even harder, you could move on to multiplication skills, and you could simply multiply. So I would have 10 times 10, because my queen and my jack are 10, so I have 100, and my partner would have 7 times 6, so they would have 42. So obviously my 100 is bigger than 42, and I would get to take their cards prisoner. Again, we'd play all the way through our hand, all the way through our deck, of course, and then we would count up the number that we have prisoner. While you're playing any of these games, if you wanted to make it more difficult, of course, you could toss the jokers back in and you could give them an agreed upon amount. So we could say they were 11 or 13 or 15 if we wanted to make it really challenging. Another way that we could increase the difficulty would be to look at the color of the cards. So when I'm multiplying, I could say I have a -5 because reds would be negative, and a +10, so I would have -50. And my partner would turn over their cards, and they would have 2 positive numbers. They'd have a 3 and a 10, so they'd have 30, and 30 is obviously bigger than -50, so they would get to take my cards prisoner. One other way that you could play this would be to use it and do fractions. So I would take my cards, and when I flip over 2, I would make them into a fraction. So my fraction would be 2/9, and my partner's fraction would be 10/10. Obviously, we know 10/10 is a whole, and a whole is much bigger than 2/9, so they would get to take my cards prisoner. And we would go through the deck, all of our hand, and then we would count up the number of prisoners that we have. When playing fractions, sometimes it's a good idea to have scratch paper, because I know that for me, trying to figure out a fraction in my head can sometimes be very difficult. So trying to figure out 2/9 or 1/8, figuring out which is bigger, sometimes it's good to draw a picture. That's a great way to show your thinking, and especially starting out, I would definitely recommend doing that. Hopefully, you've seen one way that you'd like to play Math War, and that will help you to increase your math knowledge. Happy playing!